Hey guys, making another video today. Today is November 1st. First day of November, Saturday. Hope you're all having a good weekend. Today's video is about the last verse of John 16. Or well, not the entire verse, but just the part where Jesus says, "Take heart, for I have overcome the world." Jesus says this right after saying, "In this world you will have trouble." One of the things that kind of made me want to make this video was, and a lot of people today, there is so much, I guess, just anxiety about everything. And it's personal to me because throughout most of my life in different ways, I've dealt with anxiety pretty severely. It had gotten to the point where when I had gotten to college, it was basically almost debilitating, to the point where I just couldn't even go to in-person classes, and I had nearly failed 2 classes because of it. When I was younger, it came up in different ways, but when I got to college, it manifested in, like, I guess what would be more common as mental anxiety, because it would be, I have the kind where it's, you start to get anxious and have a panic attack and it feels like you can't breathe, basically. Stuff like that. I know it's different for different people and for different reasons as well. For me, it wasn't really a particular reason. I have or had what's called generalized anxiety. But it has gotten to the point now where, after my experience with God last year and these past almost 12 months, actually, it's 11 and a half. I think my experience happened like a day or two after Thanksgiving last year, actually, where I'm not really anxious like 99% of the time anymore. And obviously there's still the 1% where any average person's going to be anxious about just some of the things that are in life that are common. But one of the things for me was, you have to trust in God more than the fear and whatever you're fearful about. And I know that's something that takes practice. For me, it took a lot of practice to be able to do that. You shouldn't expect to do it immediately perfectly well. If you can't, it's fine. Work on it with God. For me, it's, when that feeling comes on and some slight situations where it can still happen to me, I need to, what I do is mentally, I back up, and I realize I'm just letting the fear take control of me. I'm trusting in the fear more than God. And it always helps me to, take that step back and be like, God, I trust in you more than the fear. I pray and it gets better every time. Don't ever, ever, ever let evil or other people try to tell you it's not going to work. That's just a lie to keep you from talking to God. Now, apart from things like anxiety, there's fear about, let's say, job, economic conditions of whatever country you live in. If you live in one of the countries where there's fighting going on, fear about war. Fear about if there's like some sort of famine happening, fear of food and being able to have water. Fear of, I guess, if you're in school, grades, living up to expectations. If you're in college, living up to your parents' expectations to not become a failure. Though I feel like we all go through that at some point. And God, Jesus tells us, take heart. I've overcome the world. There's nothing that the world is going to throw at you that Jesus will not help you through or that he can't overcome. If you're anxious about something that's going to come up, some event, test, I don't know, something like that, pray to God for the Spirit to give you wisdom and a spirit of boldness and discernment to be able to do well, if that is his will, and whatever's coming up. You know, don't just sit there thinking, oh, I'll just not be scared or fearful or this or that, because you're gonna be if you don't talk to God about it. And I know sometimes, at least for men, it's like, oh, we can't be seen as being fearful about anything, or, you know, where you get labeled as weak or whatnot. Every single man has fear in them about something. Just because you let it show externally doesn't mean you're worse than the other guys around you who hide it within themselves. The difference can be that you trust in God with the fear. You know, those people around you who don't show any might not be trusting in God with it, and it might be eating them alive inside, and they're just not showing it. But you can trust in God with anything. Jesus will help you through it, even if you think it's the smallest little thing that doesn't matter. God says to come to him about it. Now, about that. Yes, in small situations like that where it's like, God, help me through the anxiety of this particular situation I'm in right now. Maybe it's you're at some event or test or something, you know, he'll help you through that. But if it's something more long-term or generalized with life itself, it might not be taken away from you immediately, like the fear, or you might not be getting the wisdom or direction you're wanting. And one of the things I actually wanted to say in yesterday's video, which was advice for young men, was to look at the book of Habakkuk, which is one of the minor prophets in the Old Testament near the end. And that is a very good book for looking at, okay, God, why is all this bad stuff going on? Why aren't you helping? Why is this like this? Why is that like that? What's going on here? I feel like you're not there. All this is going on, blah, blah, blah. If you're part of the fear in you is feeling like that, I would say to go to that book and read that. You know, God, his answer to, I think Habakkuk asks God, there's a back and forth between him and God, and I think it's like 3 times or something like that. I can't remember. But it's basically, you know, God says, you can't see the whole picture. There's so many things going on that the entire scale of it is incomprehensible to a human mind. I'm working things out for the best of my people, God says. Not for you specifically, though I care about you and love you, I'm working it out for the best of everyone. And that takes time, especially when God lets us exercise free will. Because of that, it takes time for God to, you know, work through people, let them exercise their free will, and for change to occur both in the world and in people around you. You know, God says sometimes things take time. Or it could be that God says you're not ready for what's coming, or you're not ready for this next step. I don't know why. God, if it seems like that's the Sorry, if it seems like that's the case, pray to God about what am I lacking in. Could be He's saying you lack patience for what's coming. I don't know, seriousness, zeal. I don't know, just something like that. It can be very hard to be, just stone cold, not fearful about anything. But what is not hard is that you can always go to God about it. Always. And one of the things that I need to work on too, specifically, is remembering that. Because lots of times we just kind of forget that we can, or that we feel like we can't. God is there to help us. He loves us. He loves you. There's going to be some situations that you're going to go through in your life that feel excruciatingly difficult, excruciatingly testing. It feels like everything's falling down around you. It may not be happening now, or it may not have ever happened to you yet, but most of us probably will go through something like that. And God says the faithful will come to me in those times for help through it. Sometimes God allows things like that to come your way to test to see if you will still come to Him, give Him praise, but also seek out His help on stuff, even though it seems like there's no hope. God is the God of hope, love, peace, joy, guidance, direction, everything that is good. Just because you individually can't see the grand scale of everything, don't feel like there is no hope. I've felt like that plenty of times, and then later on down the road, I felt like an idiot because there was hope. And things work out eventually. There's going to be lots of times where things aren't going to work out in the time frame you want it to or hope for it to. Doesn't mean things didn't work out in the best way it could. Could be that you still get some sort of, I'll say, you have something taken away from you that you didn't want to be taken away, but maybe through it, God worked in you and you gained some sort of holy characteristic, oh my goodness, like patience, peace, kindness, love, joy, stuff like that, fruits of the Spirit. Just remember, Jesus is there. Lots of times I can't speak today. You'll hear people say, especially people who are not religious, say, oh, I tried to talk to God about taking this terrible situation away from me, and I prayed about it a couple times and it just didn't go away, so I kind of just don't believe in God, and I don't feel like He's there, and this and this and that. I would say not to listen to those kinds of people. Those are the kinds of people who are not going to have patience. They're going to drive you away from God. Those are oftentimes the kinds of people who are divisive and will cause you to walk away from God and chase after what, they want you to. But God says to choose your friends carefully. Bad company ruins morals, obviously. Solomon says in Proverbs. David says, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing, and I believe it is Psalm 23. If you need hope about fear and things that are going on, I would say to go to the Psalms, because lots of times David sings praises even amongst the most terrible things going on. I would say to go to there for encouragement. You know, one of my favorites is, well, obviously speaking through the Spirit, talking about Jesus. You know, Psalm 118, where he says, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. And later on in the same chapter, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And Jesus actually says in Matthew 15, I've been jumping around everywhere in like Matthew and like John lately, so the chapter numbers are getting mixed up in my head. I just know that at the end of one of the chapters in Matthew, Jesus says, Jerusalem, I tell you that you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. You know, Jesus will win in the end. Sorry, that's not even correct. Jesus has already won. It's just a matter of time until the end comes. He has already overcome the world. The world is not, you know, still in a state of, I guess, chaos or war against God in a way where, you know, God isn't in control of something. You know, Jesus is always there looking out for you. You just gotta go to him. You know, some situations are gonna feel like you wanna walk away from God, or like it's pushing you away from God. Lots of times that can happen with, if you're a parent and you have a kid, maybe he was sick or unfortunately, you know, forbid, died. If you go through some extreme circumstance like that, you know, it can really push you away from God. You know, I'm not sure what it is for you, if anyone's watching this, but there are going to be there are going to be circumstances where it feels like you're being pushed away from God. And lots of times the forces of evil will try to expand upon that and try to drive the peg further and further into you that separates you from God. And don't let it happen. It can be very easy to let it happen because you just want to feel sadness, self-pity, doubt, you know, whatever. Just know that Jesus has overcome the world. I say it again and again and again, but it's true, and lots of times we forget that. To be honest, like I don't ever remember that verse. Reading it yesterday, I can't remember. Yesterday, for the first time in a while, I'd kind of completely forgotten that verse. Of course, I always go to God about stuff anyway, but that verse specifically, I'd forgotten about. Just be willing to trust in God with everything. Go to him about everything. And be willing to get an answer you don't like. Because God works out things that are best, and lots of times we can't see what's best for us because he knows us better than ourselves. I hope any of you who are going through a bad time in life, I don't know if it's relationship-wise, financially, friendship-wise, you know, whatever it may be, trust in God with it. That is the absolute 100% best thing you can do. Yes, you can talk to other people about it, and that's fine, but God says to go to him first. Talk to God about it. Put your hope in him with it. And don't let the fear about it control you. Don't let the fear about it drive you into making impatient, stupid decisions. I've done that time and time again, and it will not help you. Patience is virtue. Just know that God is there working. Trust in him. regardless of what is going on. Today is, like I said, November 1st, Saturday. I hope you all have a great weekend.